Kia ora, everybody. It's fantastic to be here. I've got 2 challenges to start with, and they're my personal ones. Keep it to 6 minutes and contain my excitement for this conversation. And also the challenge I was given was to speak in pictures. So I'm going to try, but it's amazing to see at that local level what that transformational change looks like. I'm going to try and move you back to the other end of the scale, which is about changing people's thinking, behaviours and practices, which is a little bit what Jerome and Johnny talked about this morning. So I'm going to start with this picture of Mount Taranaki, which means nothing according to my work, but this is actually where I like to hang out and where I'm from. And although I work in city centre development for Auckland Council, this is my house out in the Waitakiris because I actually prefer to be in contact with nature. And so I travel in to focus on how we can bring these ideas of the mountains and the bush into the city. When I was young, driving up to Auckland from Taranaki, one of the most exciting things for me was coming over the Bombay Hills and seeing those city lights stretch out before us and the hope and the potential that that man-made city structure brought to us. And we used to call them the fairy lights. But slowly, through the experience of COVID, through our anticipated impacts of climate change, through the fact that cities' roles are changing and need to become much more resilient places, they are fast becoming less of a land of opportunity for people, and people are starting to turn away from the traditional value of the city centre. So what am I here to talk about? My manager gave me a Ngāwero challenge too, which was to change how we talk about cities. And the reason that that happened was because we were seeing a lot of conflict over really funny things like car parks. You see those in the news all the time. And it felt like it felt like the level of the conversation was really wrong. We shouldn't really be talking about car parks. That's just really mitigating very small things, and that we needed to have a bigger conversation. But all of you who work in this space know that conversation takes time, and it happens over a long period of time, and that our conversations and our challenges and our cities all evolve and change. And why do we do it? We need to work together, but it's for these wonderful future people. And these are my tamariki and my nephew there, and experiencing some of that cool urban design down in our waterfront that you would have seen with the baskets down there. So we built this amazing downtown area, and there's pockets of really cool things. There's pockets of Indigenous design. There's pockets of really cool structures, man-made structures. But probably, again, we thought about that construction in a way that was building out our environment, strengthening seawalls, looking at how we contain nature. And so I really question whether some of those decisions are the right decisions for our future, and whether we need to really start changing the way that our project teams work and think in order to get better results for the future. Told you the stuff about me because of this quote, which I like, and it's really about the fact that changing behaviour starts with changing the individual, and then you can work with wonderful people that are like-minded to work together to start a bit of what I like to call a bit of a revolution. So that's what I'm hoping to see in our city centre. So what have I done? I've done a project, and it's a different kind of project because it's about changing discourse and changing thinking. So within the council whānau, we work in a massive organisation. There's about 7,000 of us as employees, and it's a very diverse workforce. So we have to try and take people along on the journey with us, and to also understand that communities are not risky. Communities are how we the whole reason we're there and why we're doing things. But it's not just the communities now, it's the communities of our future. And that intergenerational thinking is super important. So again, we get bogged down with stakeholders and car parks and who's there right now, but that's not what we're building for and not who we need to be thinking of in the future. So to try to draw attention to the issue, I started a project called Regeneration Conversations 1. Just like Jerome alluded to with his mahi, this is for me at least a 3-year program of many conversations and many layers of conversations, and being here today is one of those, to try and think about our city centre in a different way. And so a bit unusually for systems thinking and for holisticness, we did break them down into 5 work streams that you can see up there, to have 5 work streams, 6 conversations, and 6 months of those conversations. And the reason we did that was actually, it was a bit circular, but there was a point to it. So I was really hoping that across those different disciplines and ideas that we would see the same things emerge. And I could say to our council whānau, it's not about your strategies and your plans and your targets and these things, it's about all of these other things. So we brought these groups together, thinkers, academics, leaders in their fields, and asked them these questions around the future of the city centre. What would a city centre that was thriving really look like to them? And they came up with two kind of common sets of themes, and this was quite an interesting part. There were themes around outcomes and themes around processes and how we get there. And I think that's a really interesting distinction, because what we need is a call to action. So that's our process, and our outcomes are our vision and our principles and our values, which I still think we need to do some more work on. But you'll see up there that some of those key things, like I love the idea that equity can be an outcome, but also it really needs to be a process. And we often use the term, but then all of the things that we do set ourselves up to not achieve equity. So I think that's pretty interesting. I only have 6 minutes, so there's lots more in a document that we've produced that goes into a bit more depth around what we heard from the people that participated in those work streams, and some of them are here, which is fantastic. But also some other key learnings. So you might be familiar with this image and concept that as societies, we really spend a lot of time adding. And that's the world I work in construction. We add, we build. That's the whole point of our existence. So we had some pretty phenomenal conversations about how we change that dialogue and how we really test, do we need to build things? Do we need to do more? Or could we maybe do less? Could we live a little bit more lightly? And this particular study is one where this guy asked his child to make a bridge equal, and he watched what happened in this instance. And the child took one part of an uneven bridge away out of Lego, and that made the bridge stand evenly, whereas when they performed that study with other people, including students, everyone spent the time looking for the right size brick to add into the bridge to build it up, which is obviously a lot more time, a lot more energy. It's got cost associated with. So how can we fundamentally reshape how we do things and think about things a little bit differently? So part of that is by having a really clear vision and a set of values about what we're looking for. And one of our participants wrote this beautiful letter about what his hopes for the city would be in the future. How do we get there? So we came up with a list in our documents of acupuncture projects, so just like the ones that Sarah showed then, how can we use small projects to stimulate behaviour change, to stimulate a different ecological system, to change the values of all of the people that live and work in the city centre. So we're pretty keen on that, and one of the projects that I'm starting with, and who knows whether it will be successful, I'm nearly up in time, is High Street. And my key argument there is, can we achieve a fantastic place without spending $16 million and importing bluestone? But that is going to be, it seems like a silly conversation, but it will be a massive achievement if I manage to save the council $16 million. So I leave you with a quote from Tolkien, "Little by little one travels far." This is a tiny conversation which I can't possibly squeeze into 6 minutes, but if you would like to know more, firstly, I just want to thank all these amazing people there. And this is my email address. So if you would like to get a copy of the document or have some conversations about the things that we might be able to do in our city centre, whether they're big conversations or little conversations, I'd be really grateful to hear them. Thank you.